Vanakkam, Namaste, and blessings to everyone. This is Dr. Bhairavi Balasubramaniam, PhD, the Sky Priestess. So, my first video got cut the moment I tried to get into this. I wonder why. I wonder why. Technology has a way of revealing the status quo. I mean, just as a brief statement, I've noticed even on Facebook that my my friends' accounts are getting attacked or hijacked. And literally, what's going on is their feeds are being filled by stuff they never even posted, usually stuff that's promoting one Democratic candidate in the US, usually against Bernie. And I've been, keeping my eye out for that. I've been seeing people whom I have absolutely no connection with whatsoever suddenly appearing on my feed with ads against Bernie and posts against Bernie. And yeah, I'm just checking to see the cats are okay. They're okay. And yeah, it's been really, really weird. So, I'm not saying this to promote the man. I'm just saying that even in Malaysia, Facebook is doing something really weird. Technology is doing something really weird. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. I've not seen anything like it, and I've been following the American presidential elections. Obviously, we're not there yet, but just the process. I've been following it ever since I was a kid, and I was just like, this is freaky. So technology has really been showing up in very major ways, and that's no surprise given the Mercury retrograde and other alignments that make a formation to it. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about today. Today, I actually wanted to talk to you about a more widespread global triggering that I see happening everywhere. And certainly, social media, technological breakdowns, communication breakdowns are a huge part of it. I'm going to give you examples from different countries so that you don't think that I'm focused on one thing. There's actually a lot I don't say, whether it's about stuff I've learned or places I've been to or things that I'm following or things that I'm studying, because talking about everything that doesn't actually do anything. Say something only if it counts. That's my motto. So a lot of this is just teeny tiny bit of what I think about or what I do. And so when I look at it, for example, let's take Australia. Recently, there was this huge global outcry as this video of this little boy, Quaden Bayles, got released, and his mom, who has been speaking about him previously in the public domain, because this child is an Aboriginal child born with a type of dwarfism. And so she's someone who's used to the public eye. This little boy has been featured on TV before, but in a recent incident of bullying, he was just so upset that he just wanted to die. And the mom had the good sense to hold up the camera. So, of course, she got accused for it. Of course, all kinds of nasty allegations ensued, including the idea that he's an 18-year-old man pretending for the money, just because people got jealous. People got jealous that this little black boy, got the attention of stars like Hugh Jackman and got money to go to Disneyland. There's literally footage of him as a baby without his front teeth, with time-stamped things that you can verify on social media that show you who he is. But more than who he is, what got shown was who was watching him. What are the kinds of deep racial divides that are taking place in Australia that are still very much there? I'm friends with an Australian family. The lady is white, and her husband is an Aboriginal man, and so I keep an eye on his feed as well. And I saw something that he was sharing, and it was a screenshot of a nurse saying these most vile racist insults about this child. And yeah, I shared that. Believe me, I shared that because I use my platform for good. So, yeah, that's one major instance of triggering, and it's really shown people who they are. In fact, I would say all of the kids who get, who whether they want to or not, all of the kids we see in the public eye these days, they're actually showing back a reflection to us. and what we stand for or what we don't stand for. Whether it was the Parkland kids, whether it was Greta Thunberg, whether it was Autumn, I hope I'm saying her name right, Autumn Peltier, all of these kids are showing us where society is and just how difficult it is to change the density that is holding together this false matrix. And Quaden Bayles is no exception. He's a kid. Thankfully, his the Aboriginal team of, I guess, footballers, soccer. You know what? I really don't know the difference between football, soccer, and rugby. I know it intellectually, but talking in a flow, you know what I'm saying. But Indigenous players escorted him out onto the field, and he was smiling, and yeah, the kid's getting global attention, and he deserves it. You know, it's very hard to be born different. It's very hard to be picked on, whether it's on the color of your skin, whether it's your size, whether it's any physical differences. It's absolutely heartbreaking. I'm not saying I went through anywhere near anything as bad as that. But when I was a child, I grew up with the same thing. I've mentioned this enough times before, and I don't want to make this about myself, but just being dark skinned is enough to see you as unintelligent, as, unable to aspire or unable to do important things in the world. I've had that kind of experience, but this kid, people are literally patting him on the head as if he's a puppy. And he was so traumatized. But I'm glad more people who have a heart have shown that heart, and that's good. That's example number one. Example number two is what's happening in India. That's another case of global triggering, I would say, or way this has manifested. So, of course, the current president of the United States, and I do not wish to grace my space by the utterance of his name, the current presidents of the United States visited India. And during the time of his visit, riots broke out in Delhi. So here we actually see a mosque, of the actual footage of a mosque being defaced and someone planting a Hindu flag on it. And mind you, I'm not saying I hate Hindus. That would be denouncing part of my own heritage. I'm talking about extremists. Riots, women being afraid of being raped, issuing cries for help. An old woman, an 85-year-old woman, was burnt. All kinds of things are happening there right now. And this is another example of global triggering. And of course, this prompted a debate on my page because I shared it, and I said something like, people need a symbol. They need a symbol. They need a figure like Gandhi or President APJ Kalam, who was a Hindu Muslim, well, not Hindu Muslim, Indian Muslim physicist, was born in Tamil Nadu, and he inspired many, many children. So I'm saying people just need a figure like that right now. And for that, I got this evil diatribe on my page. It was terrible. It's all there. But it was the most sexist, colorist, and ethnically chauvinistic display of ignorance and bigotry that I had seen in a long while. All because I dared to say people needed a symbol. And why was this levied on me? Because I was an Indian. Honey, if I did a DNA test, I'm not saying that should be the marker of Indian identity at all, but, you know, but I did confirm that even on people who claim to be against the ruling party, they still seem to have this great fear of members of the Indian diaspora, or people who have the intellect and literally, this is what I spent years of my life studying, this specific prime minister, this specific case. And if I don't have the right to say it because I don't have an Indian passport, what the shit fuck? But unfortunately, I see that kind of hardened discourse in India right now. And I was talking about this with someone who, I guess positions himself as a hardline conservative academic. And he goes, well, yes, you have to support the ruling party, you have to support Hinduism, you have to support the land. And I go, no, the soul of India is beyond religion. That has been the way it's always, that's been the norm. And he goes, no, 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 the northerners and blah, 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 blah. And for those of you who don't know, there is a north-south divide. People like to downplay it, but if you are a southerner, if you're a dark-skinned southerner who has Tamil identity, or I would say even Telugu or Malayali identity, but especially Tamil, if you have that identity, you will be looked down on. And I have found this in the north when I used to do my research there. And it's very chauvinistic. So I go, well, that's not true. I mean, the Southerners have already had an understanding of tolerating different religious traditions. We've had this for a long time. But no, only because we defended you from the Muslims. And I go, hell no. That's not even historically accurate. My particular lineage is one that actually has a written record. And for example, the history of Hindu-Muslim clashes began about the 8th century in India, about that time. But for example, in the Sangam era of Tamil poetry, we actually see a flourishing literary and intellectual context that tolerated diversity. One of the greatest Tamil epics was actually written by a Jain. And its sequel, that particular book is called Silappadigaram. And its sequel, called Manimeghalai, is about one of the characters in the first book that actually converts to Buddhism. And, that kind of a tolerance for diversity, for culture, for different religious perspectives, and the ability to actually have that, occupy that such a central space in the so-called dominant culture is incredible. And this existed nearly 1,000 years ago. That is equally a vision of India. And that is a vision of India that comes from the South. So when people are talking about Indian identity, when people are talking about Hinduism, they're talking about a very narrow slice of the pie. I'm not claiming to be a representative of all of that stuff. What I'm saying is there are other visions of Hinduism. The way Hinduism is marketed and sold all over the world is very, very concerning. It's extremely monolithic. It's the kind of energy that basically promotes one narrative of history, one particular focus on language, one particular focus on ethnicity, which is completely divorced of the diversity that is India. My work was in the ethnographic traditions of, this is my personal research project that I undertook, was in the ethnographic research on the Dravidian goddess traditions, which is completely different. And, people don't seem to know that. What they tend to take is this very mainstream packaged idea of Hinduism and they run with it. So people are looking at India, already learn to look at it through these very divisive binaries. When someone is policing a member of the Indian diaspora, saying they are not Indian enough, they have already got division in the mind. It doesn't matter who they are fighting against, the division is already in the mind. And that would be example 2 of global triggering. Example 3 is what's happening in Malaysia. Well, what's happening in Malaysia is, oh boy, interesting times to live in. What's happening in Malaysia is that the prime minister has resigned. Same guy has become the pro tem prime minister. Cabinet has been dissolved. When my brother and I were going out to get some food, we noticed there were major traffic jams. And we were like, what's going on? And we saw actually groups of people very nervously looking at their phones, just looking around, waiting like they're about to waiting for some kind of sign or signal. And we just kind of went, oh no. So there's also political unrest and turmoil happening in Malaysia right now. For those of you who would like to pretend that I'm in some safe, privileged space, please continue dreaming. Please. Because, one thing I can tell you is that whilst Malaysia has multi-diversity and multiculturalism, it has come with major tensions around that. So that's example number 3, I believe. We've looked at Australia, we've looked at India, talked a little bit about Malaysia, but it is, again, I'm just talking about this in terms of global triggers. Example 4 is one thing that's happening in the United States right now, and I shared this on my post on my Facebook. And basically, indigenous peoples in the United States are asking the would-be presidential candidate, Miss Elizabeth Warren, to make a clear public statement disavowing a while back that she was Cherokee. And more than 200 Cherokees and other members of different, is the word tribes? Yes, I believe the word is tribes, have urged her to issue a very public statement saying no. Because they've in the letter they've also detailed why it is so damaging for someone with the kind of prominence that she occupies right now in the political sphere to have made these kinds of claims. You see a very, 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 dare I say, whitewashed version of this when people go, well, I can perform Native American ceremony because I had a native soul. I'm like, do you actually live on a reservation or with native community or how? But I have a native soul. What does that mean? So, like what do you have any actual connection with living indigenous community? No, no, but it's in my soul. And I go, there's a problem there. You know, it is her actions have made it okay for people to make that claim in such an uncritical way. And in fact, the way that this statement has been worded is very, very, very important. And I urge everyone to read it and look at it. And it's also important to note that she said nothing about Standing Rock when Standing Rock was going on. You know? Sorry, but if you're going to claim that heritage, what I mean, I'm not going to tell an indigenous person how they should wear their heritage or what they should do with it. But if you are a political figure claiming that heritage, which in itself is a very, very big political statement, you kind of probably need to do a little bit more than that. It's not a chip for you to get a larger platform or a larger base. So that's the fourth major example of triggering that I've been seeing. I mean, obviously, I've had a personal response to some of these. For me, in others, it's more of a political response. Sometimes you can't tell the difference between both. But these are just the kinds of things that I've been seeing coming my way and also, just affecting the collective. And it's bizarre. So I turned to the astrology because I am trying to understand, is there some way to understand the madness? What we do see, let's see, Black Moon Lilith at 3 degrees Aries, Chiron at 3 degrees Aries, squaring the North Node and South Node in Cancer and Capricorn. The Chiron-Black Moon Lilith conjunction could well be responsible for all of this major triggering and wounding around identity. It could very well be the cause of it. And because it's happening, I mean, whilst I would like to say, yes, everyone needs to practice self care, unfortunately, that doesn't stop the people who are wounding us in a way. So, whatever your identity is, be that, but at the same time, don't try to claim someone else's identity. Don't try to limit someone else from being who they are. Don't try to police what that identity is unless you actually have legit grounds on doing so. An indigenous person saying, as they did in the letter, saying, look, if you have no real connection to community, how can you be making this claim? Is perfectly legit. But some random person who got triggered by me saying, hey, India really needs a symbol right now, doesn't really have the right to say that a member of the diaspora is not Indian. That's just ridiculous. But it was actually one of the reasons why I haven't spoken about India so much, because I thought, you know what, I've lived in a different country, despite the many years that I have spent there, the immersion that I have done with the land, the culture, the religious traditions, the politics. It's like, no, 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 be respectful. I had a postdoc that I could have worked on had I wanted to do it, but I think you should know me by now. If I don't feel it's my space, I won't do it. I won't take it. It didn't feel right. But right now, that silence doesn't feel right anymore. It to me, it actually seems like condoning the deliberate exclusion and marginalization of others to build a very, very rigid sense of Indianness and Indian identity and whatever that is. There is a difference between being respectful and being a doormat. And yeah, that's not what I'm for. But I do try to stay as respectful as I can, and that is important. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share, and you just with a kind of like a snippet. No, there's one more thing. There's one more thing I wanted to share. Example number 5. I knew there was a number 5. I just didn't remember it till the end. But there was another thing that I wanted to share that I've also been working on, and this one is from the UK. Um, as you know, as I mentioned before, there is a real issue with the dissolution, or rather, I wanted to say dilution, but I guess over time it becomes dissolution. But the dilution of tradition, and why it is so important to actually learn a tradition from someone who is legitimately holding that lineage. That is an issue that goes beyond race, I would say. That is literally about energetic safety. So, as I told you before, this is the kind of energy which is something that needs to be handled with respect. And I was writing to this organization in England who was making claims that it could teach online diplomas in hoodoo, also Wicca, also Native American spirituality, and all these kinds of things. So people could take this and get diplomas. And I was polite with them, but you know what I'm like, polite, to the point, firm. Um, I don't use foul language against people because I don't need to. So, do I do cuss when I see something like they're using a chart? That's more for ventilation, but you know what I'm getting at. And so I write to these people and they don't respond. So I start writing to other regulatory bodies in the UK on some of the other causes, whether it's counseling, whether it's psychotherapy, whether it's wellness and so on and so forth. And one of the responses I got back was shocking. So this was shall we just say that it was a council who was supposedly therapies, and they gave me a response. They just said, well, no, this is a sham, don't do this because this will not give you anything. And I said, okay, can I share this publicly? And they go, oh, no, no, don't, you can't target their business. Everyone has different ways of promotion. And I mean, this isn't promotion. They are literally claiming certification. And they go, no, no, we don't want our organization to be used. And I just said, well, that's disappointing because if you don't do it, I don't know who else will. And really, you need a name change. They don't need to hear from individuals because they don't listen to them. A lot of people have been writing into this place and nothing has changed. So I just said, you need a name change. And 10 years down the line, when you see thousands of so-called practitioners with these online diplomas coming in and diluting the field, remember that you were told and you decided to sit by. No further response required. So I gave it to him. And I've been writing to other bodies in England, none of whom seem to recognize these diplomas. So I've also identified one of the CMA as the other licensing body, and after hearing that, people have also started writing to them because they see that their practitioners doing these online courses have actually caused harm. So the so-called licensing body for this center is also being contacted, and I am going to be trying to follow up a little bit more. But that is also happening, and I would say, whilst not quite a global triggering, it does show me how difficult it is, and I suspect that's the South Node in Capricorn, how difficult and necessary it is to wake people up from complacency, to get them to challenge the essence of the status quo that is so, so, so toxic. And that has been what's been happening. Yes, the trigger is there, but people use it. Use it to challenge the status quo. Don't use it to throw your energy in a vicious way and project on people who are not actually there to harm you. They're trying to help you. Use the energy to challenge it. Use the energy to say what needs to be said so that we can actually work towards creating a better experience on this earth space for everyone. Now, I am looking at comments now. First of all, hello to everybody. Hello, Whitney, Brandon, N Black, Third Eye, Sandy, Akasha, Sacred Ascension, I've already said Sandy, Yvonne, Rick, who else is here? Flower Child, Crystal, Bodhi. Hello, everyone, and hello, everybody else who hasn't commented. So Bodhi wants to know, what about coronavirus? I mean, I can tell you what's going on in Malaysia. And hello, Paul. Hello, Aqua. In Malaysia, there were 22 confirmed cases, 20 got discharged, perfectly healthy. So really, there's a lot of global hype about this. So just taking the basic precautions that you need to when you're traveling in crowded spaces and so on and so forth, that should be more than enough. Increase your immune supplementation, whether it's echinacea, vitamin C and zinc, whatever, do that. Those kinds of things work. Just make sure your body can take it. Do some research on the herbal protocols that some people are suggesting, because this is literally a virus. um, I would say that, yes, people are getting infected, but the way people are making it sound like everyone's dying from it, that's not true. So I think more people have actually died from the flu in the United States. So, nah, don't fall for the hype, just stick to the basics. And with that, I need to head on over to Facebook and do this all over again, but I did want to just touch base with all of you. Hello, Cicely. I did just want to touch base. These triggers are good in the sense that they show us where people truly stand. The masks are ripped, which is, it gets really ugly. People wonder why this happens to me a lot, because I keep saying shit, and good shit, the kind of shit that can make actual things grow. And that's why people get triggered. So if you keep getting that kind of opposition, good. You're doing the right thing. Don't take it to heart. So take care. Very many blessings. Lots and lots and love to all of you. Remember, self care is important, but so too is speaking up. Cha cha for now. Bye bye.